Every single day, agency owners come and ask me, Josh, I am getting so many people responding to my messages, but I don't know how to convert those into appointments, right? So either you're just basically starting conversations with people and they're responding to you, but you can't actually figure out how to get them on a sales calls, and if you can't figure out how to actually get them to show up, okay? So there's basically 4 reasons why that happens, and in this video, I'm going to basically explain all 4 so that you can implement those 4 into your appointment setting process so that you can actually get appointments and not have to worry about basically being ghosted, okay? So let's go over the 4 things, okay? So essentially, the number 1 thing that I see, this is probably the second most common one, is essentially something called natural integration, okay? And that's basically just a fancy way of saying basically you transitioning into the pitch doesn't really make sense within the context of the current conversation, right? So a lot of people do kind of like more of a bait and switch approach where like they say, hey, is this the best place to ask questions? And then the other person's like, yeah, this is a great place to ask questions. And then they're like, okay, so I'm basically helping blah, blah, do blah, blah, blah. And then you start pitching basically, right? Now, this person didn't respond to you because they wanted to hear that. And they responded to you because they thought you had a question, you might be a client, right? So people, right, the people who are responding to that message are not going to be the people who are going to be open to essentially hearing what you have to say. Now, there is a way to basically fix that, and I'm going to explain that in a second. It's pretty cool. But for the most part, right, when you're actually communicating something, it's better to be upfront and ask for interest rather than just basically trying to get a reply, depending on how your system works, right? So for example, if you were trying to naturally just communicate, like get the people who are interested and pitch, right? There's a pretty simple way of doing that. This is the biggest thing that I'm using right now. I am testing some other stuff, but the main thing that I do, right, is I ask, right, hey, I was wondering if you'd be open to me helping you with this. Would you like to hear more, right? Simple as that. And a lot of people, right, respond to that. But not only do people respond to that, when people respond to that, they're essentially allowing you to pitch. They're basically saying, yes, pitch me, right? So even though you might even get slightly less replies if you do it that way, you're actually going to get more replies with intent, right? Because the reason why they're replying is because they're interested in your offer, so they're not going to basically ghost you after, right? So that's the number 1 thing, because when you basically say, hey, are you taking on clients right now? They might think, oh, well, this guy's probably going to be a client. And then when you go and pitch them, they're not interested, right? Because they didn't have intent to begin with, okay? So that's number 1, okay? Now, if you are doing the kind of bait and switch model, right, where if you're asking like, hey, are you taking on clients right now? A really funny script that I'm testing right now, just to get interest from people, right? There's a couple different things that we did. So we used to run a script called, do you want to hear the good news or the bad news, right? And that was just it, no context at all. And what actually happened is a lot of people responded to that. Obviously, this isn't with kind of the strategy that I was talking before with the natural integration. But what we were able to do, right, is we were actually able to essentially turn that into a interested lead by using something called perceived effort, okay? Now, again, there's a whole bunch of different scripts. I would not recommend using that script because the script actually doesn't work anymore because people basically started copying me, okay? So now I use a different script and I basically reached out to people asking, why did Iman Ghazi cross the road? And then a lot of people in my space obviously respond to that, and it's pretty hilarious. But it works really well, and we've been testing that recently with my setters, right? So how do you actually take something like that into someone who's actually interested in your thing, right? So you basically want to use perceived effort. So from here, what does that mean? It means you basically want to be super personalized in the way that you kind of go about your next approach, right? And this is kind of why you have to do it with setters if you want to do it at scale. Obviously, if you're doing it yourself, which most of you probably are, then you won't need to worry about that, right? So what you basically do is essentially you record a video, like a selfie video of yourself, and you'd basically say, like you kind of connect that into kind of going into like what your pitch is, right? So you could say something like this. In my example, right, I would say that if they respond to like, why did he cross the road, right? You would say, hey John, I'm great to hear you're wondering why he crossed the road. The reason why he crossed the road was actually he was interested in getting 120 appointments in the next 120 days minimum, guaranteed. Are you like Iman? Would you like to cross the road as well? If so, just send me a thumbs up and I'll shoot you some more info about how it works. And then a lot of you are going to be they aren't, right? It's not natural in the sense that it's not like a straight line, like that's the reason why they answered. But they see that you actually put the effort in, and because of that, they are more inclined to still respond positively. And just because the video basically connects that, right? And using some humor as well. So it's not going to work with text. You can try it with voice notes as well. But that's basically how you would do that, and how you'd overcome kind of the dissonance between sending a message and it not really aligning with you sending your pitch, right? Because now, once you send that video and they leave a thumbs up, then they're basically, again, giving you permission to send that pitch, okay? So, third thing, this is the number one thing that people get wrong, is people don't want what you have, okay? And that means basically that your offer sucks. Now, it's not they don't want your service, right? It's they don't want your service the way that you're positioning it, more so to speak, right? And essentially what that means, right, is this is what I see a lot of people do in this space. They're like, hey, would you like me to run your Google ads for you? Or, hey, I do social media management. Can I help you out with that? And like, cold hard truth, no one gives a shit about either of those things, right? Any kind of service you have, no one gives a shit at all. I promise you, no one cares. Now, why do I say that, right? Because people buy this shit all the time. So obviously someone has to care, but they don't care about the actual service, right? They care about what the service does for them. So no one cares, right, about Google ads, but people do care about making a shit ton of money. And if you can get Google ads to make this person a shit ton of money, then they will start caring about that, right? But this is something that you have to talk about on a sales call, not in the appointment booking process, right? Because they're going to get too bogged down in the details. They're going to be thinking about the Google ads and not about actually getting more clients, right? So you want to basically change the way that you actually do that. You want to figure out what's the biggest problem in your niche, right? And then you figure out what is the solution to that problem. And when you're actually pitching these people, you have to talk about how you and what you do, this unique method that you do, is the solution to their problem, not the specific service that it actually is, okay? That's number 3. And then number 4 is pretty simple, and most people don't do this, and it kind of is just frustrating, right? And that's just follow up, right? So if you're not following up enough, if you're not following up consistently enough, and if you're not following up in a way that's unique, people are just going to ignore you. So I basically made an entire video on cold follow-ups, which I'll also put in the description if you want to watch that. But that's basically it. Like, if you can implement these 4 things, your booking rate is going to increase so much higher, and you're going to make a lot more money, basically, right? So if you want 120 appointments guaranteed, actually, you can click the first thing in the description, but if not, I will see you in the next video.